Next up, we have our spotlight presentation on a little project you might have heard of called Micron. And we have Kevin Eunice, our Chief Operating Officer, who's going to make the presentation.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. My name is Kevin Eunice, as I've stated, Chief Operating Officer. I have been honored to have led the state's effort to secure the Micron project. And so that is what I'm going to talk to you about today. One of the first meetings the governor took back in 2022 when she became governor was with Micron. And I was present at that meeting, after which she said, Kevin, do what you need to do and tell me what you need to make that happen. You know, recall that this is the middle of COVID and all the supply chain constraints that were realized as a result of COVID were even heightened in the semiconductor industry. So people were not able to make cars. There were things like fobs that didn't have sufficient chips because we didn't have the supply chain to do it. And so she gave me the direction to work with our state, local, and federal partners to secure this incredible project. Before we dive into the Micron project, you know, I want to talk a little bit about why semiconductors. This chip industry is among the largest industries in the world. Everything that has electricity passing through it virtually has a semiconductor, has a chip in it. I mean, one of the few tools at this table that we have that doesn't have a semiconductor in it might be our pencils. But the reality is, semiconductors are considered the new oil. Is an essential resource to enable the 21st century. Several years ago, the industry talked about hitting the $1 trillion annual revenue target by 2030. We are expected to hit and exceed it this year. It is among the most profitable industries in the world. But another reason we do it is because it's also economically impactful and accessible to all New Yorkers. 60% of jobs don't require a 4-year degree. Wages are on average 25% higher than other manufacturing industries, manufacturing sectors. And the multiplier, you know, the jobs that come with it, it's estimated that roughly 5.7 jobs for each semiconductor job is created in the wider economy. And then there is, of course, an incredibly fierce competition for this industry. It is both international and national. Other states, as you see here on the right, are competing for this industry. Texas, Arizona, Ohio, across the world, countries like China, Japan, and Taiwan have created their own CHIPS programs to attract this industry. Again, the really exciting thing about this moment is that we are impacting the balance of world economic power, and indeed the balance of world military power, at the same time with an opportunity to provide a chance for all New Yorkers to participate in this industry. So, as I said, we're at this moment that was revealed around the COVID supply chain constraints, and the governor recognized this moment, as did our federal partners, with the creation of the Federal CHIPS Act. But the governor saw this moment and said, well, if it's going to happen in the U.S., how can we make it happen in New York? And so she has given us roughly $13 billion in incentives. The biggest part of that is the performance-based green chips program. It's a $10 billion refundable tax credit program that is specifically around the semiconductor industry.
Any federal dollars in that $13 billion, or
no,
is that just all state?
That's all state. This federal government had, I think, $52 billion of grants nationwide, and then there's a very substantial refundable investment tax credit of roughly 35% on capital from the federal government. So substantial incentives, frankly, necessary to compete internationally and in New York. Key to this industry is R&D. It is almost unparalleled in terms of the investment in R&D that this industry makes. If you are not advancing, you are done. I mean, these fabs, which are tens of billions of dollars, almost have a venture quality to them. They are making these massive investments and proving their processes as they build these fabs. It's an incredibly dynamic environment, but the governor recognized how critical R&D is and provided us, as we've talked about before, you've actually approved a $1 billion grant associated with New York Creates and the High NA EUV Center. That's the lithography, lasers, shooting tin to make incredibly smaller and smaller features on semiconductors. In addition, as we've said, this opportunity isn't just about this high-tech industry and billions of dollars in investment. It's about opportunity for all New Yorkers. The governor has provided us over $500 million for programs to make sure that New Yorkers, all New Yorkers, are participating in this growth moment. Anchored really by what's called the on-ramp investment, which was a $200 million capital program for 4 centers statewide targeted to advanced manufacturing. The flagship of which will be in Syracuse to support the Micron project. And lastly, we recognize that we're competing still around the country and the world. We need sites to be ready. The governor has provided us roughly $700 million of programs like Fast New York, Power Up, in addition, funds specifically for Micron's infrastructure needs.
So the FAST program and the Power Up, they're part of that $700 million?
Yeah. Yep. And they, in part, Kevin, they were born around this need that we have. So while today we're going to talk about Micron, this really is a statewide opportunity. We have partners from Global Foundries to in the Albany area to the New York Creates in the Albany area. We have the nation's only federally designated semiconductor tech hub in the Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse areas. Kevin, as you know, we have semiconductor partners in Long Island, and we have incredible research capacity all around the state in this industry. Today, there are more than 156 semiconductor companies, and since Governor Hochul took office, we've had new commitments of $124 billion in capital to this industry. Indeed, the presence of this industry today is one of the reasons Micron selected New York. We have Global Foundries, we have other partners that existed. The ecosystem was here as a result of years of investment. It's estimated that 1 in 4 chips that are manufactured in the U.S. will be made within 350 miles of upstate New York when Micron is fully operational. But as today's discussion is around Micron. The Micron project, just north of Syracuse in a town called Clay, their commitment is a $100 billion capital investment. They will directly employ more than 9,000 folks. Now, remember, we talked about this 5.7 jobs per jobs in this industry. That generates more than 50,000 direct and indirect and induced jobs in New York. It's really almost impossible to overstate the scale of this project. This map, which I stole from our colleague here, Rob Simpson, tries to capture the magnitude. So look, if you see these dots, there's Austin, Arizona. The small dot in the center represents the current gross domestic product of that location today. And the circle around it represents the scale of the growth associated with the semiconductor or other reshoring opportunities. So the relative scale of the growth in central New York is 5 times larger than in any other part of the nation which has received this type of investment. $9.6 billion in annual state GDP growth is expected when this project is fully operational. Now, I'm going to give you a Matt Gorton isn't here today, so he can't yell at me because I Googled before I sat down to try to see where 9.6 billion sits in terms of international country GDPs. Well, that 9.6 sits at 158 between Monaco and Liechtenstein, right? So the impacts of this project would make it the 158th largest GDP in the world. And this represents this incredibly transformational opportunity for New York and central New York in particular. Today, we have seen roughly a 3% population decline. That trend has been turning, but 3% population decline in central New York since 1990. Current housing growth is less than 0.5%. Micron is expected to increase the population by 84,000 folks in central New York in the next 25 years. And we will need 30,000 units of housing to accommodate that growth. We commissioned a study. You've actually approved some of the investments to enable that study and a housing fund that we put in place as a result of that. So how did we get here? The reality is that this was an unbelievably difficult, complex process. We began in August of 2021 with our first discussions with Micron. We announced the project in October of 22, and we just broke ground at the beginning of this year in January. A massive 1,400 acre site. The length of the buildings that Micron will build will be 1 mile from one end to the other, with roughly 3 million square feet of clean room and somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 million square feet of total space. It's an incredibly large project. Ultimately, we had to, as I said, lead this sort of state-federal partnership that was necessary to make this happen. 40 state, local, and federal permits, over 600 distinct regulatory steps. To lead that coordination, the governor created what's called GoSemi. GoSemi is this Governor's Office of Semiconductor Expansion, Management, and Integration. We are an incredible organization in terms of acronyms. We do a really, really nice acronym. So
GoSemi is a team within ESD.
GoSemi is a team within ESD. No, it lives here. Meredith Andrucci is the executive director. She works with me to lead this work on behalf of the governor. An incredible team that has just worked tirelessly for the last several years. This coordination required us to create what we call sort of a nerve center, right? And effectively, we mapped out every step, every process, and how they were connected to each other. And when one step would change, that would implicate 17 other steps. And we would map that out and we would see where we were going. It was an incredible amount of work. It is, I would say, probably the most thorough environmental analysis that has ever been conducted for a project in the state of New York, and conducted expeditiously. We delivered the project on time. First permits were awarded in 25. We broke ground in January of 26. They are currently 4 months ahead of schedule on their project. So the GoSemi work, as I said, we aligned all these federal and state processes. We were provided resources to do the things that needed to get done. So when our friends at DEC needed more help to review the wetland impacts, we hired a consultant to support their work. We coordinated, and I mean probably, we announced in, I'll call it October 15th of 22. On October 18th, I held the first multi-agency meeting with dozens of state agencies to start mapping out this process and to create a space where we could identify any issues. We could raise them, flag them, move them, It has been an unbelievably strong partnership with all of our state agency partners, but it's been an incredible amount of work. So the big number here, so these are the resources that we've been given to make this project happen. Most of these, the big one there, the green chips, you don't see as the board because it's a tax credit program. It's a refundable tax credit program. It is a refundable performance-based tax credit program, meaning they only get those benefits if they do the project. When we announced this project, I was talking with the governor and I said, we are going to need so much more to do this project successfully and to make sure that those benefits are seen by all New Yorkers. And frankly, she has delivered. We have $200 million that we committed as part of the project for transportation infrastructure. Last year, we included $116 million for water infrastructure. One of that item, or a portion of that item, is on your agenda today. We committed $100 million as part of a larger $500 million community investment fund, of which Micron is committing $250 million. That is investments in the community to make sure that things like workforce, to make sure that things like educational opportunities or their community resources are in place. We have launched any number of workforce programs, including the on-ramp program, in support of this project. Again, I want to emphasize $5.5 billion only becomes real in the instance where they do the project. So you look at that number down there, $5.9 billion in support of this project. And you think, like I do, that is a ton of state resources committed to one project. But this is what is a result of that investment. As I said to you before, $9.6 billion, the 158th largest economy in the world, $5.4 billion of disposable income annually for New Yorkers. The revenue of, a portion of which comes out of that 5.5 billion performance-based tax credits, $43 billion in total state and local revenue. And the GDP growth over the next 30 years is $300 billion. It is an incredible return on the state's investment. And again, 93% of those benefits only go if they get there, right? This was an incredible effort. Absolutely, it has been the honor of my career to have been lucky enough to be in a position that I could lead the state's efforts on behalf of ESD and the governor. But it is a team effort. I tried to list everybody at ESD who I know had a specific hand in working on this specific project. I am sure I screwed up. And if you don't see your name there, it is not because we don't appreciate it. It's because I missed something. So, but I just want to share the slide with you because the tens of thousands of hours that your colleagues at ESD have worked, the leadership from the governor and Hope from day one to give us, and you all, to approve the resources necessary to make this happen, the GoSemi office. And these are nights and weekends and holidays, and it is truly an honor to have been part of this team. And as I said, it's also this incredible state agency partners from DEC to the governor's office to NYSERDA. These meetings occurred every single week for 4 years, and they were there every step of the way. And we have a ton of local and state and federal partners who are also critical to this moment. I want to call out John Cardinal in Senator Schumer's office. John was a real leader in the governor's office, in Senator Schumer's office throughout the creation of the CHIPS Act and throughout the Micron project. Your colleague who's in Syracuse right now, Rob Simpson, really was an incredible part of the team that made this project successful, as well as our colleagues at Onondaga County and all the other partners. I'm going to leave this one up, but again, the opportunity that this represents as a public servant is unprecedented. We get to do something which has the potential to impact balance of world power. And we get to do something that can intercede in generational poverty in places in upstate New York. It is, if you are a public servant, you want nowhere else to be than to be doing this project right now. It's a truly an honor, and I appreciate all the trust and the resources we've been provided. And I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thanks, Kev. That was terrific. I have a couple of questions, and if I missed it, I apologize. So, out of that 5.5 billion, a lot of it, and most of it is tax credits, from the state. And what's the federal role? What did the CHIPS Act at the federal level do? Does that give grants directly to Micron, or do those monies flow through ESD too?
Directly to Micron. I may have the exact number wrong. If I have it exactly wrong, I'm sure Rob Simpson can tell the exact right number. I think roughly $6.2 billion to Micron for both their projects in Idaho, Boise, Idaho, and in central New York. In addition, everybody in this industry who does a project meeting certain qualifications is eligible for a 35% ITC, investment tax credit.
On top of
The grants.
And those are federal too?
Those are federal
too. They don't
too.
pass through us either?
No, not at all.
Got it. That was one question. And I know you have NIPA on there and thanking them, but is Micron expected to be like a huge energy user, like data centers and all the things you're hearing about data centers, and they're using up tremendous amounts of energy, or are they not as bad as data centers?
I can't claim any expertise on data centers other than, this sort of anecdotal discussion and a ton of power. But yes, an absolute ton of power.
And grid there's enough in the system up there to accommodate all their energy needs?
There will need to be more, but there was many reasons why they selected New York. One of those reasons was, just going back to the map here. So you see that where the dot is right there.
Right.
Going north is nuclear generation. Going west is hydro generation. At that location is a confluence of power from those two sources. I think there is a center there that before Micron had 1 gig available at that center. That is why, in no small part, why they chose that location.
Got it. Yeah. And the current transmission and distribution system is able to accommodate it, or some of the infrastructure monies?
So there was an ISO study done. There will absolutely be upgrades that are necessary and are being made.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, that's great to hear. And my last question was on housing, which is always near and dear to me. So, with all the, thousands and thousands of jobs created and ancillary jobs, what did you say? You needed 25,000 new housing
30.
units? 30,000?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it, but 30,000.
And that's going to be all types of housing.
All types of housing.
Single family apartments and condos and everything.
Yep.
And is that, it's definitely needed. How is somebody leading the effort to make sure that housing gets built? I saw something in the paper today. The New York State Legislature is, threatening to impose rent control in upstate New York. I could guarantee you that will prevent investment in housing if there's rent control, because investors won't want to invest in housing if they see things like that happen. So I was just wondering, is GoSemi involved in the housing production, or is there another state arm who's going to help facilitate the construction of housing?
All of the above. Much similar to the governor's energy approach, the housing approach is also all of the above. You approved, I think maybe at the last board meeting, a $30 million grant for a housing fund, which was part of a $150 million housing fund we created for low interest loans during construction under certain circumstances within smart growth. That clearly won't meet the entire need, but the market is also going to step in here. The governor has continued to provide substantial resources through ESD to stimulate housing. We have the Housing Infrastructure Fund that we did last year, where we're paying for infrastructure that facilitates the creation of housing. Those funds are certainly being used in support of this project in central New York, but it's everybody. HCR clearly is that there are housing, but we have a very, very focused. We did a study. We commissioned HR&A to help us with a study about the housing growth in central New York.
And you see most of the housing being in Onondaga County, or will surrounding counties help, contribute to the increase of supply of housing that's needed for all these jobs up there?
Yes, I mean, I think it's reasonable given the sort of the focus. A lot of them will be Onondaga County, but certainly Oswego, which is within a couple of miles of the site, just north. On Oneida, which is 20 miles. So for sure, those communities will be meeting that housing demand.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Good luck.
Kevin,
Michael.
the efficiencies that you all learned in doing all of this, say in permitting and the like, can those be applied, do you think, in the future for the benefit of other ESD projects?
100%, and we are doing it. It's one of the things the governor talked about is that continued partnership with our colleagues in other agencies. So we continue, even in other projects, to work closely with DEC, with DOT, all of those folks who are involved in a project that requires that large environmental review and has implications around infrastructure that is far exceed the specific project.
And do you think that trickles down to cost savings at the bottom line?
I think it trickles down to cost savings, but that's not the most important. It is knowledge, right? It is success and timeliness. So our ability to deliver this project we did it by that coordination. We did it on time. It's not to say we were never surprised by anything. A project this scale is unprecedented. So there were certainly things that were triggered that we didn't anticipate, but we were able to deal with it quickly, and most of what we anticipate. I think the real benefit of that approach is predictability, right? The one thing that New York offers to this industry with GoSemi is confidence of success. Confidence once you start that process, you're going to get through that process and knowing what it is.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Great to hear. Hey, Rob, you know a little something about this little project up there. Anything you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I would just like to emphasize beyond the human impact of a project of this scale for a community, not just Syracuse and Central New York, but really upstate New York that has suffered socioeconomic decline over a significant long period of time. The human impact here is incalculable. And to Kevin's point about sort of public service, the impact that we're all able to have on these things, it's truly an honor and a joy. The more important thing, though, is the Empire State Development team and the team at New York State, all the way up through the governor's office. This project doesn't happen not just without their engagement, but without their leadership, and without their creativity and without their personal sacrifice. Having had the front row seat to watching this project and engaging with Kevin and Hope and the governor and the whole team, it is inspiring to watch the level of effort and personal commitment to doing something that many people thought would be impossible for upstate New York, and not only make it possible to deliver it and now be ahead of schedule and be in a position to capitalize. So I cannot thank the whole team at ESD enough for the way they showed up in this process, which was exceptional. Full stop.
Great to hear. Kev, if everything continues to go on schedule, when do we expect the facility to open and the first chips to be made?
I think 2029 is what they're shooting for. So
Cool.
not too far.
Yeah, couple years away.
What's today? Yeah. And there is an urgency that AI brings to this company and to this industry. Going back to that data point, the 1 trillion, that was a 2030 thought. And I know I said that, but the reality is Micron, I think, had $13.4 billion of profit last quarter. They saw revenue in, I won't even give the numbers, but unbelievable amount of revenue. Their product is at the center of the AI moment. It enables, Manish Bhatia, who is the number 2 at Micron, did a presentation a couple weeks ago. For every NVIDIA chip, there's 96 memory chips that go around it, right? Mm-hmm. And so AI is enabled by things like the GPUs and NVIDIA makes, but also by the memory that Micron makes. This moment is not going away. It is a massive moment for this industry. It's a massive moment for this company. And they are going to go as fast as they can to meet the demand that exists today. And we're doing our best to keep up with them.
Great. All right. Anybody else? No. Okay. Well, Kev, great job. Deb, or you send me your PowerPoint. I want to weave in your facts when I'm giving speeches around, to weave in all these awesome facts. And I always plug Micron, but it's very generic. So this would arm me with some good data to highlight how exciting it is. It's great for the whole state.
Can I just make one last plug here? One, obviously thanking the whole team, but the Hope and the governor, the very real investment, like this matters to our leadership. The governor has very much been a human being and recognized, like, I want this opportunity for my fellow New Yorkers, right? She has been so invested and supportive every time we needed resources. If we were smart about what we were looking for, she has provided them to us. She's just been an unbelievable leader in this moment. Without her, there's no way this happens, right?
And I think Governor Hochul deserves a round of applause.
Yeah.
Well said, Kev. Thank you for the presentation. It was great.